So, tell me about yourself.
That question. Your brain instantly freezes, right?
And you end up listing facts. I'm a software engineer. I'm 35. I live in Austin.
Accurate, but boring. It tells me what you do, not who you are.
Here's the thing. Most people sound like resumes, but the people who stand out, they share how they feel about their life, not just what they do.
So today, we're showing you how to introduce yourself with depth. By the end, you'll sound interesting, not robotic. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mindful English. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Liam. So good to be back with you.
Liam, there's one question that makes everyone nervous, whether it's a job interview, a first date, or a networking event.
I know exactly what it is. So, tell me about yourself.
Yes, that question. It's so simple, but our brains instantly freeze. We think, wait, who am I?
And usually, people default to their resume. I'm Liam. I'm 35. I work in marketing. I live in Portland.
It's accurate, but it's dry, flat. It doesn't tell me who you are. It just tells me what boxes you check.
Right. So today, we want to upgrade your self-introduction. We're moving from listing facts to sharing your vibe.
By the end of this episode, you'll know how to introduce yourself in a way that makes people actually interested in you. Not just nodding politely, but genuinely curious to know more.
We're going to show you how to talk about the why behind what you do, how to explain your career pivots, and how to use emotion words to add depth. And we'll use some of the vocabulary we covered in our previous episodes about emotions.
Because talking about how you feel about your life is so much more interesting than just listing your job title.
Ready to reintroduce yourself? Let's begin. So, the biggest mistake people make is defining themselves only by their job title. I'm an accountant. Full stop. End of story.
Right, but you can add so much depth if you talk about how that job makes you feel, or why you do it. Liam, do you remember the word grounded from our emotions episode?
Yes, feeling stable, steady, rooted.
So instead of just saying, I'm a yoga teacher, you could say, I teach yoga, and it helps me feel grounded. I love sharing that sense of stability with others.
Oh, I like that. You're not just selling a service, you're sharing a value. You're telling me why it matters to you.
What about you, Liam? If you had to introduce your past self when you worked in that corporate job you hated, how would you describe it using emotion words?
Well, on paper, I was a senior manager. Sounds impressive, right? But if I'm being honest, I would use the word drained.
Drained. Empty of energy.
Exactly. So I might say, I worked in corporate finance for 10 years. It was a stable career, but honestly, I felt creatively drained. So I decided to pivot to podcasting.
That's a powerful introduction, because you're showing vulnerability. You're saying, I was drained, so I made a change. And suddenly, I want to ask you more questions. I want to know your story.
And that's the goal, right? To invite conversation, not just deliver information.
Now, one trap people fall into is what we call the resume dump. Let's say you're at a networking event and someone asks what you do. If you respond with, I'm Sarah, I'm 28, I studied economics at UCLA, I worked at Google for 3 years, then I moved to Meta, now I'm at a startup. That's exhausting to listen to.
It's like reading a LinkedIn profile out loud. Too many facts, no feelings. No one can connect with that. They're just waiting for you to finish.
Instead, you could say, I'm Sarah. I spent a few years in tech, which taught me a lot about product development. But I was feeling restless in those big corporate environments. So I recently joined a startup where I have more creative freedom. See the difference?
Huge difference. In the second version, you're framing your journey as growth, not just a timeline. You're giving me insight into who you are, someone who values creativity and freedom.
Another common issue is what I call false modesty. This is when someone downplays their accomplishments in an awkward way, like saying, oh, I just do a little consulting work for Fortune 500 companies. Or, I'm just a grad student at MIT.
Right. It comes across as insincere. If you've achieved something impressive, own it genuinely. You could say, I consult with large companies on digital transformation. It's challenging work, but I find it really rewarding. That's confident without being boastful.
Exactly. There's a way to be proud of your work while still being humble. The key is to talk about what you find meaningful about it, not just the prestige.
And one more pitfall to avoid: using your introduction as a complaint session. I'm a teacher, but the pay is terrible and the hours are too long and my boss doesn't appreciate me.
I understand the frustration, and those are real issues. But when you're first meeting someone, you want to make a positive impression. You can mention challenges, like we did with feeling drained, but frame it as growth or what you're learning, not just venting.
So instead of complaining, you might say, I teach high school English. It's demanding work, but I feel really energized when a student finally connects with a book I recommended. You're being honest about it being hard, but you're highlighting what keeps you going.
So, to recap, avoid listing everything like a resume. Skip the false modesty, and don't lead with complaints. Instead, focus on how your work makes you feel and what it means to you.
You mentioned the word pivot earlier, Sarah. This is essential vocabulary for talking about yourself. Because life isn't a straight line. We change directions. We pivot.
Yes. And a great structure for a self-introduction is the past, what I did, then the pivot, why I changed, and the present, who I am now.
Let's try it with another emotion word: restless. Remember that one? That feeling of having too much energy, needing to move.
Okay, let me try. I used to work as a librarian. I loved the books, but I felt restless sitting still all day. So I pivoted to becoming a tour guide.
Perfect. I immediately understand your personality. You're active. You're curious. You're not just a tour guide. You're a person who solved their restlessness by finding work that lets them move.
And notice, I didn't criticize my old job. I just explained why it wasn't the right fit for me.
Exactly. The pivot isn't about complaining. It's about growth. It's about being honest with yourself and making a change.
Now, here's something important. Your self-introduction should change depending on the context. What you say at a job interview is different from what you say on a first date.
Let's break that down. How would the same person introduce themselves in different situations?
Okay, imagine someone named Rachel. She's a graphic designer who recently started her own small agency after years of working in-house at various companies.
Okay, what would Rachel say at a job interview if she's being considered for a creative director position?
I've spent 8 years working as a designer at agencies and in-house teams, which taught me a lot about collaborating with stakeholders and managing complex projects. Recently, I started my own small agency because I wanted to push myself creatively and take on more leadership. Now I'm looking to bring that entrepreneurial energy and creative problem solving to a larger team as a creative director. I feel really empowered by the idea of mentoring other designers.
Professional, focused on skills and growth. What about at a networking event?
I'm Rachel. I run a small design agency. I actually spent years working for other companies, but honestly, I felt a bit drained by all the internal politics and approval layers. So now I work directly with small businesses and nonprofits. It's more unpredictable, but I feel really energized by the variety and the direct impact I can see.
More casual, mentions feelings more openly. And what about on a first date?
I'm a graphic designer. I create branding and websites for small businesses. I actually started my own agency last year, which was terrifying at first, but I needed more freedom and creative control in my life. Now I get to choose projects that feel meaningful to me. I feel really content with the balance I found between work and having time for my other interests.
Notice how in each version, she mentions her pivot and her emotions: drained, empowered, energized, content. But the details change based on what's appropriate for the situation.
At a job interview, you emphasize skills and professional growth. At a networking event, you're building connections so you can be more personal about your motivations. On a date, you're showing who you are as a person, so you focus on values and lifestyle.
So the formula stays the same: past, pivot, present, emotion. But you adjust the tone and details based on context.
Exactly. It's the same story, just told with a different emphasis depending on who you're talking to and what you want them to understand about you.
Now, what about the present? How do we describe what we're doing now without sounding arrogant or boastful?
I think the words content and empowered are really beautiful here. They're humble, but genuine.
How would you use them?
Right now, I'm leading a small team. It's challenging, but I feel really empowered by the responsibility. Or, I'm living in a smaller city now. It's quieter than I expected, but I feel surprisingly content.
That sounds so genuine. You're not bragging, "I'm the best manager ever." You're sharing a feeling. "I feel empowered." There's a huge difference.
Exactly. When you share an emotion, you invite connection. When you just share a fact, you just get a polite nod.
So here's the formula. Share what you do, add an emotion word, grounded, drained, restless, content, empowered, to explain why or how it makes you feel. Use pivot if you changed your path, and adjust your tone based on the context.
That's it. 4 simple ingredients, and suddenly your introduction has depth and makes people want to know more about you. We covered a lot of ground today. Let's review some key expressions and phrases you can start using when you talk about yourself.
First, the verb to pivot.
Originally from basketball, you keep one foot planted and turn the other. In life, it means to change direction in your career or focus. I studied law, but then I pivoted to graphic design.
Next, the phrase to define myself by.
To use something as your main identity, or how you measure your worth. I used to define myself by my salary, but now I focus on my values and hobbies.
Then there's to own something, meaning to acknowledge it confidently without apology. If you're proud of your achievements, own them. Don't hide behind false modesty.
Another useful one, to frame something. This means to present information in a particular way. Don't frame your career changes as failures. Frame them as growth opportunities.
And finally, to invite conversation. This means to say something that makes people want to ask you follow-up questions. When you share your emotions and motivations, you invite conversation instead of just delivering information.
And remember, for the emotion words we use today, grounded, drained, restless, content, empowered, we covered those in depth in our previous emotion vocabulary episode. You can go back and review those anytime.
So here's your homework. Ask yourself, who am I right now?
Are you feeling restless and ready for a pivot? Are you feeling grounded in your current role? Are you drained and need a change? Are you content with where you are?
Grab the AI prompt from the description or comments. Practice your introduction. Get comfortable with your own story in different contexts. Practice until it doesn't feel rehearsed, until it just feels like you talking naturally about your life.
And hey, drop a comment and tell us, what emotion word describes where you are in life right now? Grounded? Restless? Empowered? Content? Drained? We'd love to hear your stories and where you're at in your journey.
And if this helped you see yourself in a new way, or gave you a framework for introducing yourself with more depth, share it with a friend who's been struggling to talk about themselves beyond their job title. They'll thank you.
We are very content to be here with you. See what I did there?
I saw it. Very smooth. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.
Bye. Stop thinking, start training with Mindful English.